Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Ben. So happy to be with you and looking forward to talking about this nuanced conversation around orthorexia and whole food plant based eating. This has been definitely a topic that I hear about that people I wouldn't say I've never ever been accused of being orthorexic myself, but I hear others talk about how they are criticized for their healthy eating habits, and people call them out for being obsessive or restrictive or anything like that. And for sure, we need to acknowledge right off the bat that being restrictive and having that unhealthy restrictive relationship with anything can be unhealthy, and it can lead to counterproductive things in our health and in our life and in our well-being. But right off the bat, just addressing the question, is whole food plant-based eating orthorexic, or are you orthorexic if you choose to eat whole food plant-based, or some way of eating that feels good for your body? The answer is a hard no. Absolutely not. You are not orthorexic. There is nothing wrong with you for choosing and prioritizing health. That being said, I think that it is worthy of a nuanced discussion, unpacking some of these topics, and I look forward to doing that in today's episode. So let's dive right in. First of all, I think it's worthwhile pointing out the definition of orthorexia. And for some reason, I thought that this was more of a proper quote unquote diagnosis. And I guess it's just kind of a label. It's not, at least it's not in the DSM-5, which is this, diagnostic to statistical manual for psychological diagnoses. Here's a little screenshot of our good old Wikipedia definition of orthorexia that I guess we can just breeze through real quick. Orthorexia nervosa, ON, is a proposed eating disorder characterized by an excessive preoccupation with eating healthy food. The term was introduced in 1997 by American physician Stephen Bratman. He suggested that some people's dietary restrictions intended to promote healthy and may paradoxically lead to unhealthy consequences, such as social isolation, anxiety, loss of ability to eat in natural, intuitive manner, reduced interest in the full range of other healthy human activities, and in rare cases, severe malnutrition or even death. So apparently people have died due to orthorexia. In 2009, Ursula Philpo, chair of the British Dietetic Association and senior lecturer of the Leeds Metropolitan University, described people with an orthorexia nervosa as being solely concerned with the quality of the food they put in their bodies, refining and restricting their diets according to their personal understanding of which foods are truly pure. This differs from other eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, where those affected focus on the quantity of food eaten. Orthorexia nervosa also differs from anorexia nervosa in that it does not disproportionately affect one gender. Studies have shown that orthorexia nervosa is equally found in both men and women, with no significant gender differences at all. Furthermore, research has found significant positive correlations between orthorexia nervosa and both narcissism and perfectionism. So maybe those who are, labeled as orthorexics are also labeled as narcissistic or perfectionistic. But no significant correlation between orthorexia and self-esteem. This shows that high orthorexia individuals likely take pride over their healthy eating habits over others, and that it is a driving force behind their other orthorexia as opposed to body image like anorexia. Orthorexia is not recognized as an eating disorder, like I said, by the American Psychiatric Association, and so is not mentioned in the official diagnosis in the widely used DSM. So signs and symptoms of orthorexia include obsessive focus on food choice, planning, purchase, preparation, and consumption. Food regarded primarily as source of health rather than pleasure. Oh, let's talk more about that in a little bit. Distress or disgust when in proximity to prohibited foods, exaggerated faith that inclusion or elimination of particular kinds of food can prevent or cure disease or affect daily well-being, periodic shifts in dietary beliefs while the other processes persist unchanged, moral judgment of others based on dietary choices, body image distortion around sense of physical impurity rather than weight. What is it? Persistent belief that dietary practices are health promoting despite evidence of malnutrition. Wow. So to have to be honest with you, this is the first time reading through this, and boy, some things jumped out at me, right? Especially looking at these signs and symptoms. I'm curious, what jumped out at you? What jumped out at you? What was it? Food regarded primarily as source of health rather than pleasure. So what I I'm not picking on you, Wikipedia, even though I am. What I'm hearing from Wikipedia is that Wikipedia is telling you that you should be looking at your food as a source of pleasure and not a source of health. And of course, Wikipedia is just telling us what society at large is telling us, that most people do view their food and relate to their food as a source of pleasure and not as a source of health. Um, what was the other thing that jumped out? Um, Exaggerated faith that inclusion or elimination of particular kinds of food can prevent or cure disease. So exaggerated faith. What about science? What about the nutritional research that has been done showing us that different types of food can cause disease? So are we orthorexic for choosing to avoid those foods because we know that they increase our risk for some disease? You can see here that this definition of orthorexia and the signs and symptoms specifically that are related to orthorexia are kind of weird. And they kind of are painting this picture that we should just be eating whatever we're served and not thinking about the consequences of the food that it has on our health, our energy, either in the short term or the long term. We should just be kind of going with the flow and being a normal, quote unquote, person. Well, I have an issue with that. I do have an issue with that because normal in our world today looks like dying with cardiovascular disease, with cancer, not dying with, dying of cardiovascular disease, dying of cancer, dying of dementia, and so many other things that are, let's face it, kind of debilitating and shutting and causing our life to be cut short. And not only life being cut short, but their quality of life to be severely diminished. So that's what normal is. That's what normal in our society is. And I don't know what the life expectancy is in our society. I don't want to go off on a big tangent, but our life expectancy, let's say, my understanding is that it's declining for the first time in a very long time, which is a whole nother topic, right? But my understanding is that life expectancy, let's just say that it's 80 for like mixed male and female, life expectancy of 80. What's normal is that for the last 10 to 15 years of that life, for people to be kept alive with interventions, with medications, with surgical procedures that are extremely expensive and extremely, dampering to someone's quality of life. So that's what normal is. I was also just thinking of another statistic, and gosh, I forget the number, and I'm sorry, this is all just coming through now. But is it like 7 or 9 prescription medications? The average number of medications or pills that someone is taking daily, an adult taking like 7 to 9 prescription medications daily. Again, that is normal. So I guess it's normal to just go along with the flow and eat whatever we're being served, eat whatever's on the menu at the restaurant, eat whatever's at the gas station, eat whatever's convenient on the side of the highway. That's what's normal. Um, but so if we're not, so it's orthorexic, or it could be orthorexic to veer away from that. So right off the bat, you can see my bias. I am a healthy person, and I always make the point that like being healthy in our world today actually is difficult. It actually takes a little bit of perseverance, a little bit of willpower at times, a little bit of dedication, a little bit of forethought, a little bit of planning and preparation in order to be healthy, in order to be like above average, above, like not normal, in order to not rely on medications. We got to kind of go out of our way at times to create the structure and systems that allow us to thrive and be healthy in our world. And one of my favorite quotes that kind of portrays this idea is from Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, a yoga teacher, philosopher. He said, maybe you've heard it before, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. It's a powerful quote. And I think that, I don't really know the context of this quote, that he wrote it or spoke it. I believe that he was more talking along the lines of, our societal norms and like what our values are, more philosophical stuff, more cultural stuff, how there's such materialism in society and such a priority on like vanity and superficial things, rather than, emotional and spiritual health and this sort of thing. But yeah, I think that Krishnamurti's quote very much also veers into physiologic kind of territory as well. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. In other words, right, it's no measure of health to be normal. It's no measure of health to go along with the status quo. So I would beg to guess that Krishnamurti was maybe also an orthorexic by the definition, according to Wikipedia, and sorry about that, according to whatever Wikipedia is drawing this information. So you see here, obsessive focus on food choice, planning, purchase, preparation, and consumption. So that's kind of what it takes. That's kind of what it takes to be healthy. But the key word here, and I think this is where we need to get a little bit nuanced and pick things apart a little bit deeper, is the word excessive. The word excessive is a really important word to understand what that actually means, both in terms of practical speaking and in terms of like maybe subjective, in terms of objectively speaking and subjectively speaking. What does it mean to be excessively focused or excessively preoccupied with something? And this is, I think, really kind of where the rubber meets the road in terms of this orthorexia diagnosis. Because, to me, and I'd love to hear your comments or your experience, but to me, excessive is constrictive, excessive is restrictive, excessive is tense, excessive is, coming from a place of fear, excessive is, this energy, right? Excessive is this kind of restrictive, fear-based energy. However, that honestly, for me, is not my relationship with food and healthy habits. My relationship with health and life in general is expressive, is, coming from a place of love, is coming from a place of passion, is coming from a place of compassion, is coming from a place of self-respect and honoring and coming from a place of, wanting to live into my full potential. So I think really what we're getting to here is it doesn't really matter what you're doing in terms of what you're eating, what you're not eating, what your food choices are, what you're ordering at the restaurant, how you're preparing your food, what you're packing in your lunchbox, what you're drinking. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. It matters how you're doing it. And more importantly than how you're doing it, even, is the place from which these ideas and inspirations and habits are stemming from. Are they stemming from a place of low self-esteem? Are they stemming from a place of fear? Are they stemming from a place of self-criticism? Are they stemming from a place of unworthiness? Or are your habits stemming from a place of love for yourself, stemming from a place of desire for experiencing your full potential of health and well-being? Stemming from that place of self-compassion and respect. So I don't think that it's selfish. Also, I don't think that it's selfish to prioritize your health. Call me crazy, but I think that it's not selfish to prioritize your health. In fact, if every human being on the planet, if their sole singular priority was their health, could you imagine this world in which we live? Like, imagine the healthcare costs if all we did was prioritize our own individual human health. We didn't worry about anyone else's health. We just prioritize our health. We would pretty quickly be able to get off of all of the prescription pharmaceutical medications. We would pretty quickly cut the healthcare costs from however many trillions of dollars down to near zero if all we did was prioritize our individual health. But again, that can be seen as excessive preoccupation with health or something like that. That can be seen as obsessive, excessive, obsessive. I think these kind of words are kind of tugging on the emotional strings of a lot of human beings. So I don't personally think that there's anything wrong with obsessing about health. Uh, Obsessing about health at the cost of other things in your life, at the cost of other relationships, to me, that's not even obsessing about health because we know, we being like human beings, we know that health is not just about the physical practices and habits and foods and whatnot, and activity and exercise. Health is not just about these physical things. Health is about our well being, our state of mind, and relationships. So, in other words, we can obsess about health holistically. We can be holistically obsessed with health. And I think that's very healthy. I think I think we are kind of dabbling in an unhealthy direction if we're obsessed about physical determinants of health, whether it's exercise or diet or anything else. If we're obsessed with that at the expense of our mental health or mindset or relationships, then that's sabotaging our overall health because our overall health is not just diet and exercise and physical determinant stuff. Our overall health is that big picture, including our relationships, our thoughts and state of mind, etc. So, yeah, like even the terminology like obsessive or that is a little bit like it's worth this nuance, the description, right? Because right off the bat here it says characterized by excessive preoccupation with eating healthy food. So again, orthorexia is just about food, right? But is there also a definition, or is it a problem to be excessively preoccupied with health? Because food is health. Food is one very important of health. So again, I think that it is unhealthy to be excessively preoccupied with eating healthy food at the expense of other determinants of health. And of course, that's where, what's his name? Dr. Stephen Bratman, he suggested that some people's dietary restriction intended to promote health may paradoxically lead to unhealthy consequences. So he said that these unhealthy consequences were things such as social isolation, anxiety, loss of the ability to eat in a natural, intuitive manner, reduced interest in full range of other healthy human activities, severe malnutrition. So I think what I'm suggesting is that excessive preoccupation with eating healthy food is also paradoxically counterproductive to our health, primarily due to the fact that when we're in that excessive, singularly focused state around one thing and not our holistic experience, if we're just focused around one thing, then what tends to happen is it create this kind of constrictive environment in our physiology. In a word, right, we turn on that sympathetic stress response. We're kind of in that constriction, and as a result, our digestive system kind of shuts down, right? We know that digestive function is optimized under parasympathetic control when we're rested, when we're relaxed, when we're grounded, when we're in a state of gratitude and presence. That's when digestive function optimizes. When we're in a state of constriction and restriction and obsessive and singularly focused on this one thing, then we can again be counterproductive. And it's paradoxical because of most people are wanting to prioritize their healthy eating habits because they want to optimize their digestive health, and they know how important their digestive health is for the rest of their health. But in doing so, and really putting everything together and being really obsessive and excessive with how they're doing things and the right thing, and got to be organic, got to be fresh, got to be this, got to be that, all of that energy coming from this constrictive, singularly focused place ends up creating a stress response in the body, shuts down digestion, and then we actually don't even get the nutrients from our food because we're so obsessed about that one thing. And then we're left malnourished. We're left in a state of suboptimal health. But and this is a really big but, a really big but, what if we are obsessing about our health from a deeper place of holistic understanding, where we're obsessing about our health in terms of obsessing about our parasympathetic control, being in a peaceful state of mind, having that pure intention to be grounded and present, especially when we're eating food, and we're obsessing about the quality of our food. We are sourcing the best quality food, the freshest, organic, whole food. We're eliminating processed junk foods. We're eliminating toxic oils. We're eliminating refined foods. We're eliminating animal products that have bioaccumulated toxins in them. We're just focusing on fresh, nutrient-dense, whole plant foods. And we're focusing holistically on our health and well-being. So we're in that grounded state. So what if we eat our meals, our awesome whole food plant-based meals, from this deeper state of presence that's prioritizing and, dare I say, obsessing about health from this deeper holistic state? Then I think that is very healthy. I think that is, in fact, my personal intention, to live from that place of holistic obsession. And sorry that I'm throwing around like words like holistic. I know they're misused a lot in our world, but really thinking about our health and well-being from a 360-degree perspective, thinking about and knowing all of the fundamental determinants of health that come into our experience and feed into our experience. So not singularly focusing on one thing at the detriment of other, but focusing on everything to fill us up. That's healthy. That's my mission personally. Again, that's my mission, professionally, to support and inspire and empower people to connect with these habits holistically again. And this is where I've got to fess up a little bit, because I think I said it before. We actually I think it was a couple episodes ago, we talked about digestive health and the connection with TMS, or tension myositis syndrome, and really the relationship between mind, body, brain, digestion, and the nuances there. And we kind of alluded to this fact as well that excessive preoccupation with food and eating is counterproductive. And we at Alter Health, we put out so much information on the power of food as medicine. I have to admit that I am afraid if I ever feed this obsessive nature that some of you might have around optimizing or perfecting your nutrition, again, at the expense of other equally important determinants of health, like your state of mind and peace and well-being. So I hope it comes across very clearly today that my message is for you to stay obsessed with yourself and your health. I get that. That sounds really good, right? Obsessed with yourself. That's where that narcissistic comment came in from Wikipedia. It's like, oh, orthorexic people are also narcissistic and perfectionistic. Well, what if we can be obsessed with ourselves and our health and perfectionistic with ourselves, like rather than perfectionistic with the superficial, materialistic, physical stuff? What if we're perfectionistic about giving ourselves unconditional self-love and compassion and understanding and respect? And to that, we're in essence, we're accepting the imperfect, we're being perfect, we're striving to be perfect with accepting our imperfections, because that's what all human beings are: imperfect, human in our human nature, and perfectly divine. So we're seeing and recognizing the perfection in our divinity. So anyways, gosh, I guess I could blabber on and on about this topic of orthorexia, but what do you think? Do you feel orthorexic? Do you feel restrictive? Do you feel excessive in your focus around food and healthy eating? Or do you feel like you're in a place of peace and obsession around your whole experience of health as a human being? Because that's where I'm coming from. And again, that's where I hope you're empowered and inspired to come from as well. So hopefully we can find that balance, because I think that's what it really comes down to: finding that balance in terms of choosing our healthy foods. Because we were just telling a story about Susanna and I went camping last weekend, and Susanna, I can't take much credit. She spent a good amount of time pre-chopping vegetables, and we were going to make this like curry out in nature and like our camp stove. And like maybe someone like looking into the window of Susanna food prepping before we went on the camping trip would say, oh, that's really obsessive. But for us, for Susanna, this is like our expression of love and passion and creativity, and like that obsession about like taking care of ourselves feels good. So if we feel good and nourished by what we're doing, I think that's really the most important thing. If we're feeling authentically good, aligned, and nourished. And the fine line can be tilted because it can. Maybe for some people, it's like, okay, well, if I do this on one day, it feels good. Maybe this weekend, it feels really good to do all the food prep and put everything in containers. But maybe next week it feels draining. Maybe next week I do just want to go out to eat at the restaurant and have a little bit of oil in my vegan plant-based this or that. I think it's totally healthy to do that if we are going to be creating that kind of restriction and tension inside, and or causing fatigue or like anyways, like stress or anxious feelings or thoughts, thinking about needing to do things perfectly. So it's a fine balance that we're all always walking and living together. So yeah. And I've also said, and I guess I'll end with this. For me, whole food plant-based eating, I have not signed any documents or contract or vow or commitment to anyone or any entity, to myself or anything. I've never signed any document saying that I will eat this way forever. You must eat this way forever. That's not what it's about. It makes sense here and now in the moment. Maybe next week there will be a shortage and there will be no plants to eat and there will only be fish to catch in the river, right? So of course I'm not going to starve, like, so if someone was going like that ideological with their eating, that they would malnourish themselves or allow themselves to be malnourished just out of ideological reasons, I think that that could be an issue. But fortunately, we whole food plant-based eaters know that plants are abundant on our planet, and eating animals generally means that we're eating the middleman, which is less efficient. If we cut out the middleman and just get the nutrients and calories and energy just directly from the plants, generally that's more efficient and healthy for ourselves, the planet, and of course the animal. It just makes sense. So how is it obsessive? How is it excessive? How is it orthorexic? Just my thoughts. So again, thanks for hearing me ramble about the nuances of orthorexia. Happy to hear your thoughts. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of the podcast, and look forward to seeing you next time. Have a peaceful and nourishing rest of your day.